Hey guys, James Klug here. This next topic is incredibly important, especially as we're approaching the elections in November. Today we're analyzing the left's plan to stop mass shootings. So conservatives often say that the left's position on gun control is unrealistic. In this video I want to break down exactly what the anti-gunners are pushing for here so we can get a better understanding of why it doesn't work, and more importantly, why there are better solutions. Now we could talk about strong background checks, but the majority of Americans already believe in strong background checks. For the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and table that conversation, and we're going to focus on the big argument that's being pushed from the left, which is obviously banning semi-automatic rifles. You'll hear people refer to these weapons as assault rifles or assault weapons. They are not. Assault rifles and assault weapons are fully automatic military-grade weapons that haven't been sold new in the US since the 80s. So the term that I will use in this video, and the correct term, is semi-automatic rifle. That includes the popular AR-15. So we've clarified what they're called. Let's go ahead and look at some numbers. It's actually impossible to determine the exact amount of rifles in the US, but some people are speculating right around 110 million. It's even more difficult to determine what percentage of those rifles are semi-auto. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to go ahead and pick a little bit less than 50%, leaving us at about 50 million semi-automatic rifles. So there are different approaches with how the left could deal with these rifles. They could do it like we did in the 80s, where we banned any new sales, or an all-out ban / confiscation like we saw in Australia in 1996 and 7. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happened here in the US in 1986. The Firearm Owners Protection Act. Yeah, it's seriously called that. And you'll notice that they're always very strategic with how they word these things. Anyways, this act banned any new sale of fully automatic weapons. It's actually still in effect. Now, of course, depending on what state you're in or what licensing you have, you can go out and buy one of these today. But there are only 500,000 in civilian hands, and there won't be more. You see, it's really important to point out this approach, because if we just ban the new sale of semi-automatic rifles, it would eliminate their need to buy back our estimated 50 million currently in circulation. Now, the problem with this approach, at least as far as the left is concerned, is it leaves 50 million semi-auto rifles in circulation. So if they believe eliminating these guns will save lives, then it doesn't really make sense to leave 50 million of them out there. Now, at the other end of the spectrum is getting these 50 million semi-auto rifles out of the hands of civilians via confiscation. Of course, we still do live in America, and much to the annoyance of the left, you can't just confiscate property without market value compensation. So next, let's go ahead and guesstimate the average price for each of these semi-auto rifles. On the low end, we're looking at around $600. On the high end, we're looking at least a couple thousand. I think it's fair to say that the average buyback would be $1,000 each. To continue, I'm going to keep things simplistic by assuming 100% of these weapons will be confiscated. Now, that's not possible, of course, and a successful buyback would be closer to 70%, leaving about 15 million semi-auto rifles in the hands of Americans. And chances are most law-abiding citizens will turn in their guns, leaving most of these unconfiscated weapons in less law-abiding hands. Not necessarily the most comforting thought. And just so you guys know, the estimates of the buyback penetration in Australia range between 40 and 80%, according to Australia Institute of Criminology. In other words, it's incredibly difficult to track the effectiveness of a buyback program. So, assuming 100% of semi-auto rifles were confiscated and bought back at $1,000 each, it would cost us $50 billion. That's with a B. And that's not even including program costs to accomplish this task. Depending on the number we use, the cost could range anywhere from $25 to $75 billion. $50 billion just kind of seems like a middle-of-the-road estimate, but you'll see very shortly why these various estimates don't really matter. Now, the left likes to say they're all about common sense gun reform. So let's review what we've talked about so far and figure out how much sense it actually makes. They would spend $50 billion of our money to remove semi-auto rifles from largely law-abiding citizens' hands. For what purpose again? To save kids. This is literally their best idea to save kids, right? And how many kids might their plan save? 0. I'll put a big old 0 right here just to make sure my opinion is very clear on this matter. Absolutely 0 kids would be saved. But hey, don't just take my word for it. Let's get some historical perspective by using a couple important examples. The largest school shooting in US history was at Virginia Tech in 2007, where the perpetrator used 2 pistols. That's right, 2 pistols. And even the monster who killed the children at Sandy Hook Elementary, who stole his mom's AR-15, had 2 of her pistols on him as well. So if his mom had her AR-15 confiscated, do you guys believe that he wouldn't have been able to accomplish his mission? These anti-gunners seem to think the shooting might have never happened. But the bottom line is this: when a mentally disturbed individual is determined to kill people, they will use whatever weapon they can get their hands on to do it. The one thing I really want you guys to walk away with today is the understanding that the left's plan saves no lives. If their goal is to disarm millions of law-abiding citizens, then you could probably call it a complete success. Now, if their goal is to save lives, then their plan would be a complete failure. So I have a couple questions. One, why is the left pushing for a plan that saves no lives? And two, if the left is willing to spend $50 billion, why not push for a plan that will actually save lives? As I mentioned earlier, you can see why the dollar estimates don't really matter. Whether it's $25, $50, or $75 billion to pay for this hypothetical buyback program. No matter how many semi-auto rifles there are, or what percentage you buy back at what price, the bottom line is that 0 lives are saved. It ultimately just comes down to how much money they like to waste. And again, since we've shown that their plan will save 0 lives, I'd like to go over ideas that may actually work. But I think I'm going to do that in a separate video for you guys. I'll leave you with these thoughts though. According to the Crime Prevention Research Center, gun-free zones are the target of more than 98% of all mass shootings. That being said, eliminating gun-free zones, making access to our schools more difficult, allowing licensed teachers to carry on campus, and adding, not reducing, the number of school resource officers is guaranteed to do more to defend our children than banning semi-automatic rifles ever would. Folks on the left are ready to spend more than $50 billion on something that won't save one life. Why not entertain ideas that will for a fraction of the cost? Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more. And then also let me know what you thought about this video. Leave a comment in the comment section below.